Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be talking about, this is the first video of a few that are going to be talking about the core and basic mechanics of Triconomist, which is the TTRPG which I'm developing now. This is the alpha set of rules that throughout this process of being on YouTube and everything, the feedback I get from you guys will be altered, basically changing the way it may work, but this is just how it works right now. So what we're talking about today is dice mechanics and attributes and skills. So just like any TTRPG, you're going to be rolling dice to determine how well you may excel at a certain, action. So you're trying to kick down a door. I say, okay, roll for power. And then you're going to take a certain amount of D6s and roll. And if it is a 6, if one of the dice is a 6, then you succeed. If the highest dice in there is a 5, you might succeed. But if it's a 4 or lower, if none of the dice are like a 4 or 5, then you fail the action generally. So you're going to have a certain amount of dice depending on your character. And you determine that by attributes. The character sheet will have 6 main attributes, of which will determine how much dice you use. Those attributes, the reason the game's called Triconomist is because your character's broken down into 3 parts: body, mind, and soul. And in the body category, you have power, which is like strength, and agility, which is like speed or accuracy or stuff like that. You have mind, which in those two you have knowledge, which is just your all around like intelligence and stuff like that, and instinct, which is your ability to focus when maybe you're encountering stress, or precision whenever you're like trying to do something exactly correct. You have soul, which is the 3rd part, and in that you have passion and harmony. And all these attributes do a lot of different things, but the main thing they do is have you to tell you how many d6s you roll when you do a certain action. Let's say I am rolling to kick down a door. The GM would say, all right, go ahead and roll for power. Let's say I have a 3 in power. I will take 3 d6s and roll them. Looks like the highest die I got was a 5. That means I would kind of succeed. Now, that might mean I damage the door, but I don't kick it wide open. It's not a perfect success or anything like that. And that's generally how the attributes work. Very simple. A lot of inspiration was taken from Blades in the Dark to create that. But it's a very simple mechanic. I think it's really easy to go about that. Now, we also have skills. And these are important because it's what makes your character truly unique. And you might see down below with the character sheet, under each attribute, there are 3 skills, and each one has 2 slots in them. If you check off one of those boxes, let's say I'm rolling for agility, and I'm trying to climb a tree. Okay, well, I have a 2 in agility, so I'll have 2 dice, but I also have a skill in climbing. Now, a skill, if you have 1 slot checked off, you'll have a d6. But if you have both slots checked off, that means you're a master of that specific skill, and you, my friend, will use a d8, which means it's unlikely that you would fail a certain roll. Again, that's if you're a master of it. If I spent my entire life climbing, I don't think it should be common for you to fail a roll related to it, just because that's the most frustrating thing in the world. When I'm playing a game like D&D, and maybe the dice aren't in my favor, I'm just like, how in the world did my character that's done nothing but train in swordsmanship, how did he not succeed in this specific task? So if you're a master in this thing, you're probably not going to fail. But I'm not a master in climbing, I'm just skilled in it. So let's go ahead and roll with my 2 dice for agility and my 1 skill die for my skill in climbing. Wow, looks like I actually failed that roll. So the 4 doesn't apply. It's only if it's a 5 or 6 when you'll take into account the dice with how well you succeed. In this case, I failed. So there might be something that causes me, or in the story, that causes me to fail this roll. So that can be the GM's opportunity to do it. However, if I was a master in it and used a d8, it would be less likely that I would have failed that 1 roll. Let's say you receive help from another player. I would grant advantage on that. And advantage in this game obviously can't work like D&D. You can't roll twice and take the highest roll. But what you can do is add an extra die, an advantage die. That would just be another d6. Let's say I'm kicking down a door, but my friend is helping me, pushing on my back so I'm able to get more force behind the kick. I'll add an advantage die so that 3d6 for a power roll would now be a 3d4. And wouldn't you know it, I got a 6 out of that roll, which makes sense because I used 4 dice in that. So it was a perfect success, opposed to that one last time whenever it didn't. Now let's say you're rolling with some kind of disadvantage. Now this is more effective and more threatening. If you are in a position when you are really stressed or really hurt, which we'll get into that in future videos, how that will work. But if you encounter like a certain situation when you would not have, maybe the odds aren't in your favor, or maybe you're hurt in some way, you'd have disadvantage, which means you'll roll your dice and disregard the highest one. And that's a big deal. So let's say that you're rolling, but I have a broken arm while trying to kick down this door. That's a disadvantage. So I'm going to go ahead and, as a GM, say, make the power roll, but have disadvantage now. Okay, so you'll see that I have a 6 here, but because I have disadvantage, we take away that 6, it does not count, which means the second highest die is a 4, and that is a failure. So you can still succeed on advantage die. Let's say my friend helped me and I get that advantage die, but my arm is still broken. Okay, in this case, I take away the 6 because it's the highest die, but I still got a 5, which means I still partially succeed. You can see how it kind of would balance that. Yes, it is much worse to have a disadvantage than it is good to have an advantage, but you're able to have an advantage kind of whenever it's creatively or narratively appropriate, when a disadvantage happens to you kind of rarely. So it adds a little bit more dread. But yeah, I like this dice mechanic system because there's still some exciting luck aspects. Like I failed all 3 of my dice earlier, and that was kind of unexpected. But you never know. And if a player during the game rolls 2 6s and they both count, meaning that there's no disadvantage on them or anything like that, then that's a perfect success. And I think something fantastic should happen once a player does that, because it's kind of rare. Also, for skill dice, now this will kind of also be hit on in other videos as well, but you improve the more you roll. What do I mean by that? I mean, the way you earn skills is, one, by your characters like being built. Like when you're making it, you'll have, skills that you'll be able to pick from and stuff like that. But you'll also be able to get a skill die if you roll doubles on a roll. Let's say I rolled 2 2s and a 5. So I succeeded the roll, and I got 2 2s out of it, which means I have a chance of learning a skill. Now, you don't get to pick out a skill willy-nilly. You then have to succeed a knowledge roll. Because, as you'll see in later videos, knowledge can kind of be swept under the rug, because it doesn't affect as much as your character sheet as the rest of the attributes do. But this is where it shines, is learning a new skill. So let's say I have a 4 in knowledge. Oh, I failed, which means I did not learn a skill at that point. Now, let's say I did succeed after rolling doubles. Let's say I rolled doubles while rolling to hide from somebody, and I have a chance to learn something. And if I would have rolled successfully on the knowledge check, you can say I put some pieces together and I remembered something for later as far as what does it mean to hide well. Now, this doesn't only apply when you succeed. Let's say you roll, but all of your dice fail, but you get doubles. That means you're able to learn from your mistakes, and still you get to roll to earn a skill. And if you do succeed on that knowledge roll to earn that skill, you will get a skill that's related to what you just tried to do. That's not everything on here. Sometimes you might have to kind of figure it out. Let's say I was hunting and I shoot a animal with my bow. I missed, but I rolled doubles. And if I succeed on that knowledge check to learn that skill, I'll be able to get a slot checked off for survival, giving me a skill die for next time I try, because I learned from my mistake. So I like that. I like that even if you fail, there's still a chance for you to earn something from it. Again, don't sleep on knowledge, because that will really come into play later in the game, especially when you're trying to rack up all these skills. I talked a little bit about how attributes affect the rest of the character sheet. How is that so? Well, go ahead and click this next video where I talk about health, stress, and abilities.